Jeffi Girgenti, running for state assembly. So thanks for joining us. Tell us where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Jeffi Girgenti, and I was born in San Fernando, California, to a mom that was a secretary, and my dad was a San Fernando police officer. He retired a detective sergeant. I am a small business owner, and I have been in my district for 35 years. I've owned my house for 23, and I started as a manicurist at 18 on Ventura Boulevard, and I opened my first salon in 1997. And so I also am a manufacturer of beauty products. So I've been around for a long time in my district. I'm established. It's very important to me that our district has somebody that is born and raised in the district and that really does care about constituents. So I went to high school in Kennedy, high school in Granada Hills. So this is my home, and this is where I want to stay, and this is where I want to continue to be a business owner. And I think we really need to make some serious changes here in California. And my constituents are amazing. I've been able to get out and speak to people and find out what they like and don't like about our district and things that they do want to change. And there's a lot of support for me, and I'm grateful that people are stepping up. They're coming to my office to do volunteer work. Right now, they're all being really quiet while I do this interview, while they're making phone calls and sending out all of our lovely, as you can see, all of our yard signs. They're all over Ventura Boulevard. So I'm grateful that you have me here today.
Great. Well, let's talk about some of the changes that you'd like to make in Sacramento. And we've been at it since 8 a.m. So we've heard a lot of different views. We've heard a lot of different issues. We've kind of run the gamut. And some of the big issues that come up, surprisingly, maybe not so surprisingly, AB 5 seems to be a big topic. It seems to be that people have strong opinions on that on both sides of this. And as you know, that's the law that's on the ballot now that reclassifies a lot of independent contractors as employees here in California. What's your view about this? Is that something that should be repealed or should be expanded?
Well, as you'll see, repeal AB 5 is on my ballot, on my yard signs. So repeal AB 5 for me is huge. I'm a manicurist, I'm a salon owner, and as of January 1st, 2022, all my manicurists will need to be employees. What does that mean for my business? It will close my business. My manicurists have no interest in being employees. We are independent contractors. We book our own appointments. We have keys to our salons, and we work whatever hours and days that we want. And now that they closed us through the pandemic, we literally have just opened. It's been a week and 2 days. So our business has taken a huge hit. It's only manicurists as of January 1st that will have to be employees. My hairdressers and estheticians will all still be able to pay rent. I think there's a huge confusion about our industry and what it means. AB 5 has to be repealed. It cannot stay on the books. We are telling people that you don't matter and that you must be an employee. And I don't agree with that. I mean, you have tradesmen. What about when you get your house done and you have a contractor come in, they're a small business. They don't hire their tile workers full-time and pay them when they're not working. We have gig workers. If you'll notice, all of your small theaters where people learn their craft and hone in their craft. A lot of your comedians started out as small, little, tiny pockets throughout the valley and Hollywood before they hit it big. And they're independent contractors. They get to go and be a gig worker for 15 minutes and do their comedy. None of them are going to be able to work. But you know what's really scary is that we have nurses that nobody's talking about. These nurses go out and they take care of people that are at home and they have wound care that they need. They're not all employed through big companies. A lot of times they're independent contractors and they go all throughout the country. One of the big things that people aren't aware of is that when women are raped or children in general, men, boys, young women, adult women, we have nurses that are forensic nurses. And what they do is they get called in by the hospitals and they do a forensic accounting of all the evidence. And they know how to deal with that patient who's been traumatized. They're able to collect the evidence in private places on their bodies and preserve it so that when they go to court, it's been collected correctly. They're independent contractors. Hospitals cannot afford to pay them on salary to be there when they don't have a case that comes in. Those nurses are now not working. So now any evidence that's being collected for a person of a violent crime, who knows if it's getting collected correctly? Is that what we want in California? I don't think so. And I think there's over 400 plus businesses that have been affected by AB5 being passed as of January 2020. It's not just the small businesses, it's larger businesses that are now going to be able to take over California because they have the resources to employ full-time employees. But even that's not good because these people aren't getting employed full-time because they don't want to pay their health insurance. So this rhetoric that, oh, all these people will get health insurance. No, they're not. How many people are getting employed on a full-time basis with benefits? Few and far between. So that creates a whole healthcare issue, which is a whole nother issue, but it's not a ballot issue right now. So I would like to work on that as once I'm in the assembly, but AB5 must be repealed. It has to be repealed, and voting yes on 22 will separate the Uber Lyft out of AB5. It will take away one of the feet of AB5, allowing us to be able to put through legislation to get it knocked out. But here's something people need to really realize is that if your industry can afford a legislator, or not a legislator, a lobbyist to go in and lobby for you, you get an exemption. So our newspapers have gotten an exemption for 1 year. So now all these little tiny newspapers that go to all the different communities, they have people that they pay to deliver those newspapers. They got an exemption. A year from now, they'll no longer be exempt, which means the newspapers are now going to have to hire them as employees to deliver your paper. That's an 85% increase in the cost of newspapers. How many of those little papers do you think are still going to be around? Like the Acorn and the Calabasas papers and the Woodland Hills little papers. And then you have our lower income communities. They rely on those newspapers in their own language in order to understand what's going on while they try to navigate learning the English language here. So that's really important that we repeal it.
Let me ask you, there have been some compromise proposals I've seen put forward on the state level and even on the federal level, and even here in California. By the way, I'm a lawyer, so I get one of those exemptions.
Yes, you do. You had a good lobbyist.
Yeah, I got a good
The
lobbyist.
manicuring industry did not.
Well, sorry to hear that. But there have been some compromise ideas. In fact, even now, independent contractors can get SDI. They can get unemployment. How would you feel about something like that? Is there something short of a full repeal? Because I have to believe that part of the policy behind this was just to allow, well, I don't know. I don't know what the policy was, but let me ask you, is there a compromise to be had here, or should the whole thing just be tossed out?
I think the whole thing needs to be tossed out, and I'll tell you why. By tossing it out, you can take small business owners like me who are independent contractor. I've been an independent contractor my entire career. I started doing nails at 13. I got licensed at 17 while I was in high school. I went to a trade school, which I'd like to get into education if we have enough time. And that started my career doing nails. I really wanted to go to law school. I wanted to be a prosecutor and prosecute serious crime. And I wanted to eventually sit on the Supreme Court and make laws. Now I get the opportunity to compete to get into the assembly, and I still get to do something more about what I'm passionate about creating laws. I think if we throw it out, and then if we look at the individual businesses that would benefit from it, I think that would be good. But I also think you need to ask the constituents what they really want. Let's talk to the contractors. Let's talk to the manicurists. Let's talk to the newspapers. Let's talk to all the 400 plus industries and ask them what they want as far as how they want it to work. If you'll notice, none of the newspapers have cartoonists. Why? The cartoonists are independent contractors. They get paid by the cartoon. So none of them are creating cartoons. None of them are working. So you have a huge issue with all these little businesses, and who gets to decide who gets to work and who doesn't. It all depends on how much money you have for a lobbyist. Cartoonists don't have enough money for lobbyists. So I think throwing it out and then taking a step back and looking at these industries and see who might benefit and who might not. Some of these people do side work along with their regular jobs. Teachers are the biggest interest. So you have teachers that work through the school year, they get paid, and then some of them are in private schools teaching. And when they're off during the summertime or after school, they do a lot of coaching of their students on how to get into college, how to pass math, how English. They're significant, and now they can't work. I think it's really a problem to keep part of it, because whoever has the biggest money to pay a lobbyist is the one that's going to change that law. Scrap it, start over, and look at it. And maybe it's just a law we should never have in California.
Okay, let's move on to education. Since we have limited time, I see that's on your
Oh,
sign
yes, it
behind you
is.
too. So tell
100%.
me about your views on education. I assume you have a view on whether schools should reopen. You probably have views on other aspects.
So as far as their opening, yes, I do believe they should open. I think kids are at the lowest risk of COVID. I think there's lots of things that we can do in order to make them safe. But that's just a huge debate that I'm not going to win one way or another, and it's not something that I can do anything about right now. By the time I'm elected, I think that we're going to be into bigger issues. So let's talk about the LAUSD budget, since that's in my district. LAUSD has a $30 billion budget with 5 people that decide how that money gets spent. We have plenty of money at LAUSD to take care of this. But my biggest concern is I sat down and read the Bill of Rights, all 31 pages. I was very surprised about, or not the Bill of Rights, I'm sorry, about the Civil Rights Act. I read the Civil Rights Act, and I was very surprised at the numbers of kids in 2019 that are no longer thriving in our low-income areas. Not that they ever thrived a lot, but what I found out in my discovery was that we don't have any charter schools in those areas, and if we do, there's very limited charter schools. Charter schools for me are huge. I was a product of LAUSD. I was one of the first classes to be bused, and I was bused into Pacoima from Granada Hills. I got into the magnet. The magnet was a lifesaver for me. I got to do a lot of great things. I see kids that want to perform and parents that feel that there are areas that their kids can perform at better when they're not limited to a zip code. And I think people don't realize you're sending your kid to a school in a zip code. We don't do anything else in a zip code. You don't shop in just a zip code. If you want to go to Target and you want to go in the city, you get to go in the city and shop. If you think your child's going to thrive in a school in a different zip code, then your child should be allowed to go there. That money that's federally funded for those kids should follow those kids. If you want to homeschool your child because you want to, you should be able to. I don't see a reason why we are limiting our kids to a zip code if that school doesn't perform well for what their needs are. And I find that our low income areas do not have enough charter schools. When you look at the East Valley, which I'm not running in the East Valley and I'm not running in downtown LA, but I do know that they do not have the kind of schools that they should have. Being in the assembly, I'm for the entire state, not just my district. Yes, I do need my district and I do need their support and I do need to keep in mind the things that they want. But if someone in my district moves out of my district and they want to have a charter school, they should be able to have a charter school in that other area. I'm 100% for charter schools. I'm 100% for the money following the student. And I'm 100% for parents have a right to decide what's the best education for their child.
Okay, you have one more thing on your sign I notice, it's public safety. And that has been a topic of discussion today. People have views on the role of the police in society and what the state should be doing, if anything, right now.
Well, I'm a daughter of a police officer, so I'm 100% for law enforcement. As a daughter of a police officer, I know what they go through every single day. And I was just on a Zoom call the other night with LAPD, and it was horrifying. I asked them how their families were doing, and it was horrifying to me that they've all had to remove their families from their Facebook pages, their Instagrams, and all their social media because they're being threatened. That's just not okay with me. These men and women put on a uniform and a flak jacket and they're willing to do the job that others aren't willing to do, and they're not paid enough for the job that they're doing, and now we want to defund them. Let me tell you what happened when they defunded the police department. You didn't get any less officers, you got less 911 callers. I'm on AM 870 on Saturday nights from 8 to 9, and it's the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club that supports me, and I'm lucky to be on that radio station. We had a call come in from a gentleman that lost his uncle because 911 didn't answer their call fast enough, and when they did, they put him on a hold. By the time 911 operators were able to send an ambulance, he'd already expired. That's what's happening when you defund the police department. If you're not happy with how the police are taking care of people, which I do understand, we have bad officers that do need to be looked at, removed from the department, but we have a lot of great officers and they're paying the price. My look at this is we have social work programs, and in Northridge, there is a huge social work program there that they train social workers. take our officers that have bachelor's degrees, ask them if they're interested, send them through the social work master's program, get them licensed, send them out there, get their hours, bring them back to the police department. Let's set them up in a task force. They're going to be double trained as social workers in LAPD. Let's take some of our social workers that have already been in the social work world for 5 years, ask them if they want to be trained as a Los Angeles police officer. Let's get them trained. Let's put together a pilot program. Let's put together a task force, and let's put them out to do some of the jobs that the police that are not always trained to do on a full capacity. But do bear in mind, our officers are extremely well trained in social work. They are trained in these areas, but it's not always their job to take care of it. So let's overlap and make it part of their job. In order to do that, we need to give them more funding, not less funding.
Okay, last question. If people want to know more about you or your campaign, how do they get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me at jeffi4assembly.com. You are welcome to call me at 818-461-0000. That's my cell phone, and that is my business number, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you. And we would love for you to come volunteer at our office in Woodland Hills at 20121 Ventura Boulevard, Woodland Hills, 91364.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeffi, for being here.
Roger, thank you so much for having me, and everybody, just go out and vote. Vote, research the people you're voting for. Don't vote for the party. Vote for the person, because there are some great Democrats and Republicans that will serve you very, very well. So look at the issues and vote on those issues, because that's what's important for California.